Y'all already know what it is. Your boy Yaakov, what it do? The outlet to reality. The holdest podcast in Vegas and Chicago. What up? This is the place where you want to hide from your drama, or maybe hide from your baby mama. Just kidding. But anyways, fans, thank you for staying tuned. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Ching. And today we have a very special guest who's a hypnotist for 27 years. The one and only Ronnie. How's it going?
Going well. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Great
Oh,
to be here.
it's an honor. It's an honor. I'm so happy. It means so much. I gotta say, so my fans get to know you a little bit more. So we met at the Chicago Shabbaton, and it was amazing. An event for people that have never done it. I recommend it. And I saw Ronnie was able to engage with the crowd, and I'm not lying. My experience from I could say, well, how I felt. I fell asleep, and then I saw seeing like this sensation in my skin and like this interesting energy that came around my body. And when you told me to, and I did see a couple colors like in my vision, like white color, green. I was like in a different zone. And when you told me to wake up, you're 190 something years old. I woke up in the count of three. I couldn't move my neck. It's like it got stuck or something. I thought I was gonna crack. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, man, I can't really move. And it was so calming. When I came back to reality, I still felt like I felt happy and I felt like I had control of my body. But and the crazy thing when I shared this to a group of people at the Shabbaton because they asked me how did I feel, and I said, man, it reminded me of that song. I don't know if you remember. It's an old song, but it goes like this: "You got me so hypnotized, the way your body move around, yeah." But it's an old song. But I started saying, and they were laughing. But Ronnie, I want to hear your perspective of you at the Shabbaton and your first time meeting me.
Okay. So I had a great time at the Shabbaton. I do two things. I do hypnotherapy during the week and some weekends, and I do hypnosis comedy shows many weekends of the year. And I love it. I never get tired of it. I enjoyed the Shabbaton very much. And I remember you came up to me in, well, should I use the word awe? I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just, you were really it seemed so amazed. I was so happy about that. I remember when you came up to me and what you said to me, and I was very flattered. And I was flattered by the whole Shabbaton. People really took to it. Really had never seen many of them had never seen such a thing before. And I like to describe it as even though if you've never seen it, it's hard to believe until you see it. And but I explain it as like when you have a dream at night and the dream seems so real. I just master techniques to get people to go into that dreamlike state, except that I control the dream they're having rather than just some random dreams happening to them.
It's so beautiful. It reminds me of The Matrix, like the movie. Like you basically took me out and brought me to the real world in a way. Like I felt like I was in this awesome zone, and yeah, it was just it was a interesting feeling. And I do want to say real quick before we ask, I have a couple questions for you. The moment I got hypnotized, I do feel that it gave me a new perspective about life. I felt like a lot of young people that are escaping their problems, right? Not all of them, but most that are struggling by themselves. They're not getting any help. And sometimes you have drug addiction and they go to many different kind of hardcore drugs to escape. And I realized that hypnosis or being hypnotized it's a lot better and safer for the body, because if you take, for example, like a heavy drug, it could last for a long time, 8 hours or more. And you, at that period, that time period, anything can happen to you and you don't really have control of yourself. Whereas when you're hypnotized and you come back to reality and you wake up, you still have you're still David, or you're still Yaakov, or you're still Ronnie. You didn't lose your you. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I will tell you something that might surprise you, because I don't remember if I told you this afterwards, but all of us have had experiences that remain with us forever, in terms of somebody saying something to us and we believe them either because we felt they were honest, or we trusted them, whatever. And that could be good or bad. So maybe someone said to us we were really good at something, and maybe we didn't think we were good, but all of a sudden we felt better about ourselves because that person is someone we trusted. So if they said we're good, then I guess we are good. And that's a great thing. But sometimes, unfortunately, it's the opposite. Somebody we trust, or we trust them at the moment they tell us something bad about ourselves, and we feel really badly. And sometimes, unfortunately, it affects our self-esteem and maybe long-term effects. So what I do in my hypnosis shows, and I did this to you, I don't know if I told you this, but it was to you and everyone else who was hypnotized. I told you to remember the whole show, but not necessarily the few things I was about to say. And I said things like, from this point forward, self-confidence is going to grow every single day. The ability to change the world by you're doing great things, that's something you're going to be doing every day, wonderful things to make the world a better place, and things along those lines, because of the same effect. Being able to, you trusted me to let you go into hypnosis, as did other people. And so at first, I once did it as a joke years ago, saying you're going to build self-confidence, things like that. But then I started getting emails that it was working. So now I do it every single show.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I gotta say, one thing that is amazing about you is that you you make it so comfortable for people to even it was my first time, I didn't know what to expect, but the experience and you being able to perform different places, like the Venetian. And I remember you told me that you actually helped someone who was an alcoholic, and they came for 2 sessions and then they stopped. I'm not sure what they had, but you said like they came for 2 sessions and they stopped being an addict.
Yeah, yeah, I've had that happen. I was one of my biggest successes. Well, I've had several where I've able to keep marriages together that were heading for divorce. I'm usually the last resort because people are afraid of hypnosis, or many people are. And I had a stutterer that I was able to get to stop stuttering instantly. But I should qualify that in this particular case, the stutterer was someone who talked normally during my show. And because of that, because she spoke without a stutter, I knew that the stutter was caused by a trauma that she had early in life, as opposed to someone who stutters where there's actually a physical situation. And I can improve it in terms of getting them to relax so they won't stutter as much. But in her case, it was a trauma. And once I got her to come to terms with her trauma through hypnosis, the stuttering stopped.
Whoa. That's wild. That's wow. You shocked me. You shocked me, Ronnie. Now, Ronnie, I gotta ask you. I'm very curious. When did hypnosis finally been like? What's the history? Like, who was like one of the pioneers to really start this? Because I know it's backed by science, but I don't really know when did it all came to be. I'm very curious.
It's probably been practiced for many, many centuries, but it was in the 1800s that a man whose last name was Mesmer, and you probably recognize the word mesmerized. So he would practice a form of hypnosis that it took him a long time to do it, like I think an hour, a really old technique that's still around. And he got many followers to come to him for different things. And so he's the one I think who made it initially very famous. So Mesmer was the one in the 1800s.
Whoa, that's so cool. And are there like schools like to get trained to be a hypnotist? Like, is there a like you how long is like the years that you have to study and practice to finally become a pro like you?
Oh, thank you. So yeah, there are schools, but mo- unfortunately, most schools I believe are not so great. And the people, I mean, the people who teach at those schools, the people who created those schools, it, it's it's their training, so that they know like one particular method of doing hypnosis. But there are many methods, and some methods are so much better. So I went to one school 27 years ago, and it was known as it was supposed to have be a good school. It had a reputation, and so I went to it. I liked it. I practiced it a few years, and then someone came up to me and said, "Hey, there's a much better method than what you do." And I said, "What do you mean?" I went to a really good school, and they said, "There's a better school." So I actually went back to that, and I checked it out, and I went to that school, and there were many more methods, and they were much better, and they worked more quickly. Like I had you and your fellow people that were hypnotized. I had you out in less than 5 minutes, which I some techniques I have, some people I have to use techniques that take longer. But for a comedy show, I do a 5 minute, 4.5 minute technique, and whoever gets hypnotized. And yeah, there are schools out there for sure. Some of them are really good.
Wow, that's amazing. And I do want to pick at your brain a little bit. I know you have amazing stories. If you can share a little bit about like any funny stories that you can remember where you hypnotize someone or if you want to share the one about the Venetian story. You remember the one that you told me about? Like you have a
Oh
bunch of
yeah,
stories I know, but if you could share like two or three, it would be an honor. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
sure. Let's see. Now we're talking now. I do two kinds of things. I do the hypnotherapy to help people with stop smoking, insomnia, overweight, and things like that. And then I do the comedy shows. So you're asking about the comedy shows, which I absolutely love doing. So one of the funniest things has happened more than once, and I think you were at that show as well, where I had a rabbi think he was giving birth. Were you at?
Yeah, to a
Yeah,
tiger. To a tiger.
to a tiger. Yeah, I had a stuffed animal tiger, and I think he actually started crying as he named his what he thought was his son Shaul,
Yeah.
and he was very emotional about it. That was pretty funny. I had an a good incident, funny one, where it was a little bit on the mean side at first. I had people think that a Kabbalist, a mystical person, was angry at their friend for talking during services, prayer services, and he said something, and all of a sudden, whatever he said caused their good friend to turn into a cookie. So I told them, as soon as I count to three, you'll open your eyes and you'll realize I just picked up the cookie. I hadn't witnessed what happened. That's your friend. And you're stuck to your seats because somebody glued you to your seats. And all you can do is shout, hoping that I don't eat the cookie. So I took a bite of the cookie. I bit like half of it. And this one guy, poor guy, was like crying in anguish that his friend that. So I said, "Hey, calm down, calm down. I'll get the Kabbalist back, and he's going to restore this cookie to your friend." But the guy kept crying, and he said, "Yeah, but look at him. He's going to come back as half a man." Because I had eaten half. So the audience was dying with laughter. It was,
Oh man, that's a good one. A story I could remember. The second day of the Shabbaton, you hypnotize a rabbi, a kid, and a teenager, and you said to them, "You are now gonna in the count of three. You're gonna speak in Japanese, and just know that everyone's gonna laugh because they're shocked how proper you speak. And they got up. Each one never met each other, and they start speaking Japanese, and I was so shocked that this really works. And I was one of the best shows I got to say I've ever seen witness. And I talked to you after the show. I was like, Ronnie, I don't know what you did, but that was amazing. I couldn't stop laughing, and it was just so entertaining. And it's just amazing the things the things I see. It's very hard to explain to people that it's real, like it really happens. But yeah, what a moment. You probably remember that too, right?
I do. That was a lot of fun. It reminds me, if someone were to search on YouTube, I don't have a lot of stuff on YouTube because YouTube doesn't, or video in general, doesn't really capture the show as much as I wish it did. But I do have a testimonial on there that was done like 20 years ago by this. It's still on there. It's an old man who's since gone, but he had said that he had just seen my show, and he said something to me. I said, "Oh, I got to get this on tape. Would you say it again?" So I taped him, and he said he had seen Harry Houdini in 1922, and he saw Ronnie Baras, my show, and he said that I was better than Houdini. So
Wow.
I was so flattered. I can't tell you. um,
Oh man, it's so funny. I gotta say, hypnosis kind of reminds me of Harry Potter in a way. Like it's like, even though it's not spells, but for me, for my brain to comprehend, like to understand it, even though I don't still understand it, but it reminds me of like Hogwarts, like because you say specific words, and Harry and his friends and Hermione, they know some spells, put the light on. It's just it feels really cool that in a way I feel like it's a awesome to have. I'm gonna be honest. That's a little comparison I can see that makes sense in my brain, even though it's not spells, but it's just so cool to witness.
yeah. I get a lot of questions after a show, and if they ask me questions about therapy, for example, that why isn't this more known? Why isn't this the first thing that people go to for help with addictions, for help with smoking, insomnia, overeating, any of those things? Why is it not the number one thing? And I explained it's, I think, two reasons. One of them is a lot of people are afraid of hypnosis. That's one thing. But the other thing is, like I mentioned earlier, the schools that are out there, a lot of them are teaching, and you're only as good as what you're taught. And so a lot of the hypnotists out there are not as schooled as they should be, and they don't realize it. So their methods are not necessarily getting the results that they should be getting. I'm trying to spread the word. I'm trying to get the word out there that it really is a wonderful form of therapy. It's very quick. It's almost always effective. Very high probability of success. Most of my non-success would be it usually takes me 2 sessions to help someone with whatever issue it may be. So it's pretty quick, just two. But I tell people, don't just come to one, because I can't guarantee I'm going to get you the results. And some people come to one session, and let's say to stop smoking, and if they grab a cigarette a few days later, they think, oh, well, I was hypnotized, it didn't work, so I'm not going to go for the second. And I tell them, beforehand, no. Come for 2 sessions before you decide whether it's working for you or not. Give me my 2 sessions. So
Oh
that's my take on it.
man, that's amazing. And I gotta ask you, Ronnie, you're very a great person, a Jewish brother of mine. And I want to ask, who were your mentors who was your mentor, and what inspired you to be a hypnotist?
Oh, okay. I'm going to answer the second part first, and then I'll go to the first part. I got started. Well, let's see. I had two things that happened about the same time that got me into hypnosis. One of them was the youth group NCSY. When I was a teenager, they had an event on a weeknight, and it was not very well attended. There were maybe 12 of us, but they had a person that who lived in my area at the time, Silver Spring, Maryland, and he did a demonstration of hypnosis, and I was fascinated by it. I was absolutely fascinated, and that was one thing. And about the same time, I had a disease called Crohn's disease, which is a digestive illness. I technically still have it. It's a permanent thing until they find a cure. And I would have major problems if I got nervous, which was often. I would have terrible stomach pains, and that's a pretty common thing with Crohn's disease. So I went, my doctor told me, Ronnie, you've got to learn how to relax. You're the most nervous person I ever met. And I said, I'm nervous because I'm afraid I might get sick. So he said, find a way. So I started reading books on relaxation. Half of them mentioned self-hypnosis. That worked beautifully for me. And so those are the two things that inspired me. And then years later, I went to school, 8 months or so, to learn hypnotherapy. And I haven't looked back. And there was a first part of your question, which what was that again?
Your mentors, people that
my
inspire
mentors.
you.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that
Okay, so my mentors have actually are gone from this earth at this point. There were two of them. One of them I never met. I just read his book. So the one one of them, I trained under him with Omni Hypnosis, OMNI, that a great school. Jerry Kine was his name, and he was the one that taught me the most modern methods. He was a fantastic teacher, and he was very encouraging to me, very, very encouraging. And he had done videotapes or some sort of taping system in the 1960s and 50s of my other mentor that I never met. That was Dave Elman, Elman, who wrote a book on hypnotherapy. It's called Hypnotherapy, actually. And even though he used to train people in the 60s, dentists, how to do dentistry without Novocaine or xylocone, I think they used to call it back then. So he had to practice doing that. And his methods they work to this day. They're very quick. They're pretty, I use some of my own developed methods, but a lot of them really had their origins in Dave Elman and ultimately Jerry Kine, who taped him but also studied under him. So those are the two mentors that I had.
Whoa, that's amazing. I think it's a beautiful thing to find, especially for people that are searching. Especially a lot of young people this day and age, they don't have that guidance, or that maybe they don't have both of their parents, or they don't have someone to look up. And I think it's great for everyone to find that special person where you can grow and learn and find that guidance. I think it's a beautiful thing, and I highly recommend it. And it's nice that you had a mentor who taught you a lot, and you saw it meant a lot to you. And also reading, if you don't read, you don't know.
Yeah. I was going to mention that, to be perfectly honest, when I went to school 27 years ago, I was not looking to get into hypnotherapy. I was looking, because I was so fascinated with hypnosis, I wanted to do the comedy shows, and that's really all I was looking for. But I couldn't find a school that taught the skills of comedy hypnosis. All I could find were hypnotherapy. And when I went to my second school, the Omni Hypnosis that Jerry Kine taught at that time, that's when I saw how he was able to help people. He would bring people in every class to fix all sorts of issues, like I mentioned before, the smoking, etc. And the speed at which he did it, I became fascinated in the therapy part of it, which was what the school was all about anyway. And so I started practicing hypnotherapy back then. I still do it to this day.
Wow. And so It's so inspiring. It's a beautiful thing. Like I said, I'm so fascinated. I'm like so 100% for it. I tell people all the time, look, my fans, you have to try it. I think it will change your life. I love it. And it's crazy. I called one of my best friends and I told her about you. And I said, look, I gotta tell you about this guy, Ronnie. What a genius. Like I don't know what he did, but man, and I told her all the experience that you and I was like, she was so shocked. She's like, you need to help me find him because that's amazing. You see?
Oh,
So hey
they,
Ronnie,
they, they can take my name. Yeah, I'm sorry, Ronnie Baras together.com and find me that way. No, I live in Maryland. I flew into Chicago, and I love Chicago. I come a couple of times a year to do shows and
whoa.
some therapy.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And what places have you been? I know you went to Vegas for the Venetian Hotel. What other places have you been in the US?
I've been to pretty much the major cities. So I just booked a gig in Phoenix and Chicago, LA, and Atlanta. So it's the major cities. And I do shows in Canada, Montreal and Toronto. And I've actually done shows in Israel. So,
Whoa. That's now you're going international. Yes. Yes.
yeah,
That is
it's
so
nice.
cool. That is so cool. No, I'm really proud of you, and it's amazing what you're doing, and very inspirational. Like I said, and keep it up. I do want to say, Ronnie, if you could share a little bit. This is kind of funny for me. It was a little story, but and you told me about a time where I want you to describe it more. It's about the where you made that person believe he was a millionaire, like he just won the jackpot. Do you remember?
Oh, okay. You want that story?
Yes, yes.
That was actually one of my stories that didn't have a great ending. Well, you probably remember. Uh, it was my first show in Las Vegas at a hotel, the Venetian Hotel. And I had this idea. It was a very easy idea that I thought it would be very nice to have everyone that was hypnotized believe they won $1 million. So I did that, and they were all excited. And there was one particular guy who was like, he didn't mean to be necessarily, but the star of the show. Everything he said was so funny, even if he didn't mean it to be funny. So I picked him. I said, you can't just keep this to yourself. You have to call somebody, let them know you won $1 million. So the audience is laughing hysterically, and he calls his mother. Now, we only heard one side of the conversation. Now, when I do the phone call, I have them put it on speakerphone. Uh, but we hear him talking to his mother. He says, Mom, I just won $1 million. And they're all laughing in the audience. And then he says, No, Mom, I would never kid you. I won $1 million. And they're all laughing. And then he says, So, Mom, now we don't have to go into foreclosure. And at that point, it was silent. I felt awful. Oh my gosh. It was one of my. The good thing about that, though, if you can say, there was a silver lining, and I knew from that point I could never let such an incident happen again. So from that point forward, I now say every single show you are not going to say or do anything that you would regret. So I have not had a bad incident since then because of what I learned. But yeah, that was a memorable thing.
Wow, what a story, especially a lot of my fans are from Vegas, so you gotta let me know when you come to Vegas. I have to come to your show because you are definitely like I said, you know how to move the crowd. And Ronnie, I know we're about to run out of time, but if you can share one last question I have for you is what advice can you give young people that want to pursue hypnotherapy?
Okay, so I've I've already mentioned that there are different schools out there, and some of them are much better than others. The one that I know is fantastic is OMNI. It's Omni Hypnosis. I think they were just taken over by someone who trained there, and that it may not be based in Florida anymore, but I know if you Google Omni, OMNI Hypnosis, and I don't get a share of anything, but that would be a great starting point. Reading books, of course, I think is great. You can even watch YouTube now, but it's such a big area, and some people are so much better than others. So definitely, you want to, if you're going to pursue it, just really find out about it, find out which ones seem to be legitimately really good, and which ones may not be. And you can ask around, you can see ratings, things of that sort. So that's what I'd recommend if someone really wants to pursue it. And we need more qualified people. There are a lot of hypnotists, but not necessarily a lot of good ones. So yeah, it's a field that I feel I wish it were regulated more, because it's not taken seriously enough. And yet it's we need great people. So I encourage it.
I love it. I love it. Well, there you have it, guys. This is the outlet to reality. The holdest podcast in Vegas and Chicago every Tuesday. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Ching. You guys can find me on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, the outlet to reality. My Snapchat is Take One Pass It, and my TikTok is at Yaakov28. And Ronnie, where can my fans find you?
They can find me at www.ronniebaras.com. That's RONNIE Should I give a phone number, or should they just go to the website? What's the normal protocol?
It's up to you, Ronnie. It's up to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to give my phone number. It is 240-305-7007. Hey, if you want to explore it with a hypnotherapy session or two, you can call me. And I do this over Zoom now. It works beautifully, because once you close your eyes, the process is the same, whether I'm in the room with you or whether it's by Zoom. And I've pretty much transferred most of my business to Zoom, because it does work. So don't be afraid.